This morning, Stefan has selected some wonderful music to feed our spirits. Let's begin by listening to the crescendo choir singing Hold Up the Light.
This is a reading from a book called Comfortable with Uncertainty by Pema Chodron. And uncertainty was a condition we inhabited. We were swimming in it last week. So I thought this would be an appropriate thing to bring forward. The wisdom of no escape. The central question of a warrior's training is not how to avoid uncertainty and fear, but how we relate to discomfort. How do we practice with difficulty, with our emotions, with the unpredictable encounters of an ordinary day? For those of us with a hunger to know the truth, painful emotions are like flags going up to say, "You're stuck." We regard disappointment, embarrassment, irritation, jealousy, and fear as moments that show us where we're holding back, how we're shutting down. Such uncomfortable feelings are messages that tell us to perk up and lean into a situation when we'd rather cave in and back away. When the flag goes up, we have an opportunity. We can stay with our painful emotion instead of spinning out. Staying is how we get the hang of gently catching ourselves when we're about to let resentment harden into blame. Righteousness or alienation It's also how we keep from smoothing things over by talking ourselves into a sense of relief or inspiration. This is easier said than done. No kidding. Ordinarily, we are swept away by habitual momentum. We don't interrupt our patterns even lightly. With practice, however, we can learn to stay with a broken heart, with a nameless fear, with a desire for revenge. Sticking with uncertainty is how we learn to relax in the midst of chaos, how we learn to be cool when the ground beneath us suddenly disappears. We can bring ourselves back to the spiritual path countless times every day simply by exercising our willingness to rest in the uncertainty of the present moment over and over again. Now back to Pastor Theresa.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. For the wisdom story today, we're going to talk about something scary. You want to know what it is? There it is. It's a shark. There's a lot of prepositions we're going to think about today. Sharks are what lies beneath. The reason this hammerhead shark is in some orangey yellow water is that he's swimming inside an underwater volcano.
Oh.
So let's talk a little bit about why you think people might be afraid of sharks. Go ahead and unmute yourself and tell me your reason. Why do you think people are afraid of sharks?
They like to eat.
Big teeth. Teeth.
Too many teeth. They like to eat.
They like to eat people.
They like to eat people.
No, I don't.
That's one story people tell about sharks. Yeah. What else do you know about sharks that's frightening? One
They have
more
amazing
thing.
senses of smell. They can find you.
They lurk in the bottom. I can surprise you.
They lurk in the bottom and they can smell you. Yeah, I mean, those are things, right? So today, we want to talk about sharks for a big reason, not just for those reasons. One reason is, even if something looks mean, it can be vulnerable, right? So the thing about sharks is that 100 million sharks are fished per year. That's 6 to 8% of the shark population. That means in 10 years, half of the kinds of sharks in the ocean will be disappeared. But everyone has a place in the biome. And when we talk about biomes of plants or animals, we mean the community that occurs in nature that is their home. So we have a question for ourselves. Getting so fished, being vulnerable because they are fish, even though they have a lot of teeth, where do we fit into the problem? These times, even though we got an outcome that a lot of people are excited about, still call for us, are still demanding to heal the world. And just like we have to do our part and think about that overfishing and think about the threats to sharks because we want to keep them connected to the web of life, as the election moves forward, many people will be trying to think of how to stay connected. And it may not be obvious, but that search is making them vulnerable. What can you and I do about it? Well, we can offer our friendship. Every living thing on Earth is connected to each other and to us. When we kill a shark, we don't just threaten the marine ecosystem. Without healthy oceans, our climate will get warmer, and more animals will disappear. One day, not so suddenly, the next endangered species will be us. We can use what we've learned in the election to have that make a difference about the survival of everyone that we care about. The hard truth is that even if it takes another 420 million years of evolution, our oceans will bounce back. Humans will not. We have one more thought on this subject. It is this. Conservation is as much about preventing the extinction of sharks as the extinction of us. Never in history has there been more critical time to grow our understanding of our role in the world, where they gather and why they migrate and how they interact and what they need to survive. It's our job and your job to find out. So let's get started. It's good to remember that even though we're paying attention to all of the problems that we have, our problems are asking us for that attention, which reminds me of this. Perhaps all the dragons are princesses who are only waiting, you're going to see us act with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love. The poet Rilke. I want to close with one more scary animal. This is bonus. This is a caiman. And on his nose, he has a flambeau butterfly. You know why that butterfly is there? Because she's going to go drink those caiman's tears and get protein and water. So the thing I want you to know is that this week you've noticed something. You've noticed that working together really matters. And there are going to be things that frighten us, but inside them, there is life for us and for each other. This is a time in our service when we take a moment to center and share with each other the things that are on our heart. November 11th, 2020 is Veterans Day, but in order to communicate the values within it, we remember Armistice Day on November 11th, marking the armistice signed between the Allies of World War I and Germany at Compiègne, France at 5:45 a.m. Veterans Day is meant to encompass all the veterans of all the wars, but we do not only remember the skills and sacrifices of war our veterans have made, but also each of their actions for peace. May we add our actions of peace to theirs. Thank you, veterans, for all the ways you served and sacrificed for all our communities.
I'm a worship associate. I'm Corliss Smith. Phew, it's been quite a week. An excruciatingly slow motion election. Last Tuesday election night, I was so distraught, I was trembling. I know a lot of people lost sleep, I did. I was very close to being freaked out. It seemed like an odious one might again get more votes. I had to remind myself that our life will go on relatively unchanged, but with everything going downhill and not enough care or effort to turn it around. Lots of suffering. There still will be a lot of suffering, but at least someone will be in charge who cares. What a relief. But our country is extremely divided and I'm confused. I ask myself, what does education mean to the uneducated? Many different things, I guess, as with all phenomena. But despite the adage that ignorance is bliss, isn't knowledge better than ignorance? And isn't it better to have people with knowledge in charge of what they know about rather than to rely on gut feelings or amateurs who are chosen not for their expertise, but for their ideological stripe? Those whom I consider ignorant might reply, I'm not ignorant. Your facts are wrong. And even if I'm shown my facts are wrong, I maintain my position because I will not allow you to bend me. That would be weakness. Being ignorant means ignoring things. But an ignorant person is not a bad person. When I look at certain voters as ignorant, I really wonder how they vote me or how they view me and mine. How do they characterize what they see as our delusion? Are we liberals, gays, eggheads, new agers, socialists, just plain sissies? And what does that mean to them? If the majority of college-educated people favor something, does it mean that those voters are automatically against it? That's nuts. And then there's certainly tribalism to consider. We want to be individuals, and we also want to belong to groups. We find out what tribe we belong to, partially by identifying the tribe we're not part of. I'm not with them, I'm with them. I see a difference in worldview. To me, the other team is about me first, everybody out for himself, and I do mean himself. But as a group, they feel massively aggrieved. Their grievance, one thing uniting them. Janet McFarland described Trump's adherents' viewpoints this way. I want a lot of money. He's got a lot of money. I'll vote for him.
Boy.
I don't see this as a successful long-term human strategy. It won't benefit anyone, especially some who espouse it. The ignorance really makes me mad. But I know that communication without judgment is the only way to achieve any kind of harmony, and we badly need harmony. It's hard to accept that there are people who do not want harmony when I find it so utterly lovely. I ask, what is my relation to ignorance? Can one ever be truly informed? Does information dilute racism? It seems that the slave states have never really gone away. I ask myself what people who oppose an integrated society and refuse to accept that we are a multiracial society of equals, what do they think is lost in this? Is life so barren for so many that they still have to make skin color a basis of their self-esteem? How can people be persuaded that each person is so much more than their skin color? Each of us has a past, hopes for the future, people who love us and whom we love, various quirks and eccentricities, skills and strengths, and most people have something to offer. Yet I speak from a position of relative prosperity in a land where many are not prosperous. I think I know why this is so, but they think they know too. I wish I could make more connections with people who are unlike me, but I really don't know how to do it. If anyone does know, I'd appreciate your help. One thing I do know for sure, though, something all religions preach, is that my contempt for others creates no good at all and poisons me. We cannot meet others in contempt. I try to understand my own contempt instead of just burning with it. I don't know if understanding cuts through contempt, but I'm going to keep going in that direction as much as I can, trying to understand as much as I can. Any help there would also be appreciated.
Thank you so much, Corliss. It was wonderful to hear about your week. We have some of those same questions too. I'm hopeful that as a community we can pick them up as points of conversation. Now's the time we are going to have a chance to enjoy a virtual choir video from the Crescendo Choir in their virtual format.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem, dona nobis pacem, dona nobis pacem, pacem, dona nobis 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 pacem, dona pacem, dona nobis pacem, dona nobis pacem, dona nobis pacem.
Will you join me in a moment of contemplation? There are a lot of sorrows that we carry in this time, a lot of joys. You may have heard my request that each person bring a square of toilet paper to the service. Do you have that with you now?
No, I have a square of something else.
All right. So, I want us to think about the whole roll of toilet paper. You know, you imagine it. Cardboard in the middle, layers around and around. One time when I talked about this subject, I had the worship associate, her name was Joanne, unroll the whole paper while I was talking. So about 2/3 of the way through the service, she got to the end. And from that very last square, we just took a tiny corner. If you take that tiny corner from your toilet paper square, what that represents, the whole rest of the paper is the age of the universe. Right? Everything that's around us, atoms, rocks, dust, everything that became what became planet Earth. All that time is represented by the yards and yards and yards of toilet paper. And then when we come to that last square, and we take that tiny corner, that corner represents the recorded part of human history. The reason I want you to have that view of the universe and our spot in it is that right now our work is to heal the world. And as you heard from Corliss, our work, this work of healing, is not simple. But Monica Yellow Owl of the Klamath tribe reminds us that there is 14,000 years of art before colonization, 334 years of conquest. In contrast, there were 14,000 years when we owned our own healing. Now, we'll say a few words. I want you to bring that thought of your place, your time, and how much time we have to do all the right things we need to do as we pray. May you welcome the energy in your heart, shaping it into recommitment to the work that we will still need to do, no matter what the votes tell us. May we meditate on the issues that matter and plan for our next move, both as, well, not both, but including our moves as individuals, as friends, as community. May we educate ourselves on the issues we know less intimately and find ways we can support others who are doing the works we don't do. May we acknowledge the intersections of all these issues and struggles, and may that acknowledgement allow us to reach into our deep connectedness for the work going forward. May that deep connectedness give us hope, be medicine for our uncertainty, but hope all the same. For all these things, I give thanks and say, Amen. In just a moment, I'm really glad to be able to introduce you to Reverend Joseph Santos-Lyons. We'll be talking about what lies ahead, and we're going to have a time for you to ask questions and tell us some thoughts. But first, I'd like you to watch this example of someone moving forward, even though they're not quite certain what's next.
said you must hurry. Come quickly. It's a leap of faith.
Well, this is because they're showing Raiders of the Lost Ark. I want to show you.
There it is, Indiana Jones having to choose to move ahead, even though he wasn't sure exactly how that was going to happen. Today we have with us Reverend Joseph Santos-Lyons. I first met Joseph in Oregon. That's where Reverend Joseph is from, and met around my participation with First Unitarian Portland. And for a while, I was an organizer in Portland and continues to be the consulting minister of DRUM, Ministries for People of Color and Unitarian Universalism. DRUM stands for Diverse, Revolutionary, Unitarian Universalist, Multicultural Ministries. And so we're really grateful to have Reverend Joseph this morning coming all the way from the Philippines.
Hello.
Thanks, Reverend Joseph.
Maganda umaga, which is a Tagalog greeting in the Philippines for good morning. It really means you are more beautiful than the morning. It's after 2 a.m. here. My heart is with all of you in the West Coast and in the Oakland Bay Area. It's great to be with you. And thank you, Reverend Theresa, for the invitation and for all of your presences today here today. A friend wrote yesterday that modern politics is religion by other means because they have become the space where we contemplate the notion of good and evil. That we also are in a point in our lives in this world where we need to reframe political fights by other terms, because these are fights that we will be fighting over and over again before we're done. He encouraged us to think politically about politics, meaning we can shift our perspective to recognize the complexity of an election. Biden isn't ideal, and Trump is by no means the worst expression of authoritarianism. And the people who are supporting one or the other cannot be reduced to their choices. Elections are a snapshot of our human relationships, our bonds with one another. These are bonds we should take seriously, but also maintain a nuanced view that includes the reality that they are fluid and complex. Elections alone will never give us what we want, despite what candidates may promise. There is no instant gratification. Elections are a pivot point, a moment of reflection and evaluation for our community where leadership and power shifts. For me, November 3rd has been a national stress test of our relationships, a collective assessment of our values and beliefs, and it is not the end. Caminante, no hay puentes, hace, andar. Voyager, there are no bridges, one builds them as one travels. I look out at the political landscape and I believe we are reaping what we have sown. We have been at a dangerous crossroads, that period of uncertainty where we are anxiously awaiting the first signs of a good harvest. And we have weathered so many storms that have threatened to wipe our hard work away. We have felt that deep uncertainty that makes it hard to sleep. Is our soil healthy enough? Will our seeds take root and flourish? Have they been tended well enough? Will the harvest satisfy our needs? I'm giving thanks today to generations of ancestors, particularly Black, Indigenous, and people of color, who have tended and watered and grown and weeded the relationships we need to realize hope, justice, and love, who with faith and without certainty have kept planting seeds and laid the groundwork that will make tomorrow a better day, who have passed on these traditions from generation to generation, organizers who have built bridges by working side by side through the storm, who have encountered voids and brokenness and connected one by one to build new ways. As I was watching the election returns this last week, I'm reminded of all the people and movements that lie just behind us. For example, the protest in Arizona that fought extreme anti-immigrant measures a decade ago and formed new organizations such as Puente that went on to oust Sheriff Joe Arpaio and elect progressive candidates across the state. We are reaping the benefits of the labors of ordinary people organized around common causes, who went on to not only win, but create enduring networks of new relationships that appear to be the margin of difference in this presidential election. What lies ahead? More planting, more tending. Our conditions may be better than yesterday, and we should take heart in some of these good results. We have come out of such a painful and traumatic period that it is natural to feel disoriented. My hope is for us to keep making our way to the next bridge, staying healthy, staying grounded, developing local organizing, local knowledge, and being able to be engaged in local governance. We must keep participating and keep planting and growing and tending throughout the larger life cycles of relationship building and decision making that directly affects our lives. In our families and neighborhoods, we are experiencing a surge of political empowerment, particularly among communities of color. In my own Asian American Pacific Islander community, our friends in Georgia dialed 220,000 Asian Pacific Islander voters, or over 94% of the eligible voters in our community. In Wisconsin, Hmong phone bankers called every Hmong family in the state. These results are the results of many investments and hard works like these across our communities. And progressives win with strong multiracial alliances. But we should also remember demographics are not destiny. The bridges we build will come in all colors and shapes. There is no one size fits all. Each of us is a bridge builder, a bridge walker, a bridge holder. We do this through our deeper listening, our humanizing of one another, including those we disagree with. We do this by contributing our time and treasure to organizing efforts that advance our values, such as this very church. We do this because we dream of a world where we all have the rights, resources, and recognition we need to thrive. We do this because we need one another. Thank you, and blessed be.
Thank you so much, Reverend Joseph. This morning, I want to begin with what's good. Are you ready? Go ahead and unmute your microphone. You can cheer or clap or say yes or whatever other joy you have for these things. And if you don't have any and then get to the end, then we'll keep going. The first is that Delaware elected Sarah McBride, the nation's first transgender state senator.
Yay.
Oklahoma elected Turner, the nation's first non-binary state senator. New York elected Richie Torres and Mondaire Jones, America's first two openly gay Black members of Congress. Hawaii elected Corey Black Black Lives Matter activist and the state's first Black woman elected to Congress.
Yay.
3 New Mexico women, Deb Haaland, Yvette Harrell, and Teresa Leger Fernandez, became the first all-women of color congressional delegation to represent a state. 2 of them were also among the
New
very
Mexico.
small handful of Native Americans in national office.
Yes.
Yay.
Mississippi approved a new state flag to replace the one it finally voted to remove this summer.
Yes.
The last to be switched flag with Confederate emblem. We want to remember these particular victories because we will have to add to them. At minimum, I want us to think about what's underneath the impulse that we have in moving forward. Unitarian Universalists consider Ralph Waldo Emerson a significant influencer on the thought and practice of Unitarian Universalism. You've heard his name sung about, right? Well, that's why Emerson, who went by the name of Waldo, brought transcendentalism to Unitarianism. The school of thought is characterized by equity, individualism, self-reliance, integrity, and optimism. Waldo was pretty serious about that self-reliance bit. It's the name of one of his most famous essays. This is probably the sense behind his quote. What lies behind us and what lies before us are but tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Have you heard that before? I guess it's possibly true, but it's only true if you're the only one you're counting on. It's time for a remix. What lies behind us and what lies before us, this is what Waldo says, are but tiny matters compared to what lies within us. And as we examine that and as we remix it, we'll have to talk sometime about the problems with Waldo's call for self-reliance. But today I want to focus on what that remix is. What's possible in our next iteration of who we are as people and how we move through the world? Well, what lies behind us and what lies before us? So behind us is where he started. But we're not going to stay with the within us. Behind us and within us are both the resources that we already have. Chicana feminist and queer theorist Gloria Anzaldúa reflects on this challenge. What does it mean, though, when we shift from an individual perspective to the idea of building bridges? Well, we're still building. No matter what happens, we build. We build strength, build partnership, build peace and safety in a deeply divided country. So, what lies behind us and what lies within us is not as important as what lies before us. But one of the complications is that a bridge is never a one-person project. If you come with one stone, what you've got is one stone. You come with one skill, that's what we've got. So much more is possible and actual by the virtue of teamwork that you've committed yourselves to. A bridge starts somewhere and then somewhere else, right? And to connect those liminal spaces, to make a way, we make room for one another and bring one another along on that way. How we started is how we continue. Strength, determination, and part of Waldo's legacy, specifically equality, integrity, and optimism. What I need you to take away from today is that no one can steal your future. Your agency and your collective determination to govern your own behavior as individuals and as a covenanted community is what matters. When there is no bridge, we will build it. Your collective strength, skill, and devotion to the world in and around you is particularly suited for this moment. And there is more. This community holds you in your fullness and your wholeness. We will experience a great many things in the weeks and days that are ahead, but we will remain together and we will continue to build. We have much to celebrate going forward. May it be so. Let us see to it. Right now, we have a chance for folks to ask a few questions. Especially, you have a chance to ask Reverend Joseph about other reflections, perspectives from the Philippines, ideas about how we move together collaboratively. What are your questions right now?
I have a
Reverend
question.
Joseph? Oh, there is one. Go ahead and put yes in the chat so I know who to call on.
This is Emily.
Emily, go ahead.
My question is, what's the best way to reach out and communicate with people in our lives who are Republicans and really strong, firm Republicans, intensely Republican?
Yeah. I mean, I have two thoughts that keep me going. One is that like liberals or progressives or Democrats, Republicans are not a monolith. You know, almost any of these different identities we hold politically are not, you know, monoliths. Not everyone thinks and believes exactly the same, despite what the media or social media might make us think. So always entering into these spaces with as much openness as we can muster. And the second piece is to be able to have the most like intentional one-on-one that is possible. And you know, you don't have to come in with the expectation that you're going to wholly transform and convince someone, you know, of another way, but to be able to slow things down enough. I know Obama and Biden have been saying, let's like cool the temperature so you can have as much as possible of a talking story space where you can get more to the root of why people believe or where they're coming from. What are the life experiences that have caused them to join forces with, let's say, the Republican Party that may be raising concern for you. Because for me, at minimum, it's about understanding as much as we can first, to be able to humanize the other person's experience. You know, down the line, yes, persuasion and ultimately solidarity would be so welcome. It would be so welcome.
Thanks so much. Let's have one more question, if you've got one. If not, I'll offer one. All right. Well, Debbie mentioned in the chat that it's a great opportunity to conduct a treasure hunt for where there's agreement. That's right. And when you know what you agree on, then you can continue to build that bridge. It's like the first stone on their side of the bridge, right? So good job on that one. I guess my other question would be, probably people are still balancing, and I'm asking all of us what you think about this. People are still balancing, okay, well, it's not quite a done deal. We know that the incumbent hasn't conceded, so I imagine some of us are still carrying concern about that. And that is something for us to talk about. How are you going to move through the weeks and days ahead while things are still being arranged, considered, and decided?
Are you asking
Do you
me?
have thoughts about that?
Theresa?
Anybody? Everybody? Yeah.
I have thoughts.
I don't see any yeses in the chat, so I can't call on you, but.
Oh, okay. I'm doing a hand thing, but
Oh, MJ, I know who that is. You go ahead.
one of the things that I responded to in Emily's question, and it kind of ties into the second question. Emily asked, what is the best way to begin to make amends or communicate with a Republican base? One of the things that stops me is when somebody says the best way. What is the best way? Best to me is a way to not make any kind of an attempt because you're afraid you're going to screw up. And I think we just need to make a stumble forward. Be awkward. Be brave. Yeah. Be kind. We don't have to do it perfectly.
Excellent thought, MJ. Thank you so much. As with many of the things that we talk about when they're like this, when they're about who's different and how do we connect and how do we move forward, one of the things that we're carrying is multiple things at a time. So at some point, we just have to try. I love that part of what MJ is saying. And at other points, we want to level up our skill. So both of those things are going to be true all the time, right? And when you come in with your integrity by making a choice that aligns with either of those values, whatever your heart is calling you to, then you can prepare for your next move. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll have a chance for more questions. And if people would like to email questions, we can continue the conversation with Reverend Joseph over time as he's available to it. So, thank you. There's a note in the chat about discovering each other's humanity. This work for LGBTQ rights in Minnesota and other communities. I work with Republicans in my job all the time. They are ordinary people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not going to find too many hybrid humans in any other camp.
Yeah.
So it's something for us to remember as we move forward. Right now, we're going to have an invitation to generosity. One of the traditions that we had as we met in the building was to close that generosity with words of congregational commitment. You'll see those words after the invitation today, and we'll have a chance to put them in the chat when we say them together. So stay tuned for that.
The encouragement for the invitation to generosity today comes from Adrienne Marie Brown. We are living in impossible times. If it were fiction, it would be critiqued as hyperbolic. If it were nightmares, we would never sleep. We are living in times created by our own species. I can't remember the last time my tears weren't man-made. It feels like everything is broken. We must, each of us, fix our attention on the nearest wound, conjure within us the smallest parts of ourselves that are still whole, and be healers. Heal with words and prayer and energy. Heal with money, clean water, time and action. There's enough destruction, there's enough nothingness swallowing the living world. Don't add to it, there's enough. Our visions are ropes through the devastation. Look further ahead, like our ancestors did. Look further. Extend. Hold on. Pull. Evolve. We gratefully receive your generosity and your participation with the congregation. So may it be. let us see to it. You can give by going to the website, uuoakland.org, by giving by text, by app, and also you can still mail a check to the church. It will end up in the right place, and we will be grateful for it. Thank you.
Now, will you go ahead and unmute yourself for this statement? You can also type it in the chat, or just
Amen.
type the beginning words. To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love, we call community,
dedicate ourselves and these our offerings.
Thank you, everyone. Please go ahead and mute yourself. And what we have left is a bit of closing music and benediction. So I'm happy to have Stefan lead us in song.
So we're going to sing Building Bridges is the theme of our service. It's been this morning. So if you know it, sing along, please. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our visions and all of our voices, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our division. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Go ahead and take a couple of easy breaths with me as we wrap up today. I'll leave you with a few words, and then we'll sing Spirit of Life, and we'll be done. These are from Adrian F. Walker. Do not shut down the joy of this moment. Do not doubt it. Do not sober it. Add to it. Reinforce it. Build a wave of joy that carries us forward. Work can be done joyfully. Hope is built joyfully. Hope and futures are meant to be seen joyfully, even as we roll up our sleeves. Will you join us?
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you, Stefan, and everyone else. Thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful week. If you would like any spiritual support or ethical support, we have pastoral care associates available. You can reach them at UU Oakland, which is pastoralcare@uuoakland.org. That's the email. It's pastoralcare@uuoakland.org. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day.